Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
This is our first live Foundations of Truth from the universal curriculum of love. The universal curriculum of unconditional love. We're happy to have you here. Yay! This class is going to be a regular occurring discussion talking about some of the most important principles of this universal curriculum of love, or you could just say spiritual principles, because having a solid grasp and a solid understanding of these foundational truths makes everything else so much more peaceful, so much more easeful, puts everything into true perspective, we'll say. So this first session, um, I want to discuss A Course in Miracles, which we have been meeting for now almost 4 months. We've done, I think this week is week 14 or 15 of read through of A Course in Miracles. This is the purple copy for anybody who's not familiar with it. We choose this copy because it is closer to the true teachings of Jesus, as opposed to the navy blue copy that was originally published, was edited down. A lot of material was cut out of it because it was potentially not acceptable for the times. And this was published in 2021 based on the original handwritten notes of Helen Schuckman. So today I want to dive into the glossary because it's fantastic at giving us new descriptions for words that we made up sometimes and created false definitions for, right? Kind of ego definitions for some of these different terms. So we're just going to start at the beginning. So today this is kind of used as a reference material, but also any questions that you have, any discussion points that you want to bring up, feel free to share. Right. The first one we'll start with today is creation. Creation is the act in which God extends his will to bring into being his creations, and in which we extend our will to bring into being our own creations. Creation does not take place in this world, only in heaven. What is created is pure spirit, without form or body. The created shares all the attributes of its creator, since it is merely the extension of its creator's being. So this gives us a great perspective on which to think of our own creation, our own being, and that which we create. What we create, truly, is only an extension of our being in spirit. There is clarification within the Course in Miracles, and we've discussed this before, and we'll discuss it again, that there's a difference between making and creating, right? So we seem to make circumstances, to make bodies, to make lessons for ourselves, to make things show up because we want to see them clearly. We want another opportunity to see them. However, an act of creation, as it states here, does not take place in this world, only in heaven. What is created is pure spirit, without form or body. And by being an extension of God's creation, we are an extension of his will, right? We extend our will in the same way to create from spirit.
But you're talking about we can create too.
Yeah,
Like if you grab cylinder and you make a base
kind of.
create
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. So that would be like making, right? Because you're taking something and making something else,
Mm.
right? Creation in the true sense, as it's described here, is understanding that something happens from the level of spirit, like how you as spirit were created by God, right? And true creation, not making, but true creation occurs on the level of spirit, right?
Even
So think about it less like you're taking one substance. The example Fiorella used was taking dirt to make a vase, right?
yeah.
Think about it less like you're taking one substance and turning it into another object or something else. And think about it more like you are taking some of your anima, some of your soul, some of your spirit, and extending it, breathing life into that spirit, right? You are just, it is an extension of yourself. It is not separate from you, right? It does not change, right? It might seem to change. It might look a little different, seem a little different, but it is the same thing. Does that make sense?
So art is creation too, because you create something.
Right.
Art, sculpture, painting.
Yeah. In the sense that it is, um, in the sense that it is an extension of your being. So in a metaphorical sense, yeah, right? Because it is an expression of spirit, right? It is a natural expression and an extension of who you truly are, right?
Yeah.
And that way it's a creation. But the art itself is being made. You're making art, right? Because you're taking certain materials, right? And then turning them into something else. So that's making. So creation is something that's not happening on the physical level, right? Creation is an extension of spirit to spirit, right? So it's a little bit different than the definition that we're used to,
Mm.
right? But it's they're closely related, right? It's just it's important from the context of A Course in Miracles, right?
Mm.
To understand that there's a difference between what we make, which is seems to be in the world, right? And what we create, which happens in heaven only, happens in spirit.
Mm. Okay.
So there's a difference between making and creating. So when you think about the ego, right? Ego creations, right? It's kind of a miscreation, right? Because you're using, quote unquote, the all powerful creative mind, right? You're using your creative potential, right? Your creative energy, your natural ability to create. But since you are using that to make something that is not really real, right? You're using that to make something that does not exist in reality. It only exists in this dream of the world. We call it making instead of creating
Okay.
because it falls away with the rest of the dream. It does not last, right?
Mm.
Cool. That's a great question. Thank you. That's perfect clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. The next definition we're going to get into is the ego. Ego, the mind's belief that it is separate from others and on its own, independent from God, and that its needs are met through attack. This belief has produced our experience of being a separate body, a separate entity bounded by a body, the body being a dream symbol of the ego. Yet it is a false belief, for our real nature is at one with God and with all living things. The ego's voice is a constant, insistent voice in our minds, yet it is the voice of something that does not exist. As such, the only power it has is what we give it. This is great. Earlier, I wrote in my note Well, let me grab them here. Ego is a non existent mental construct built by us to defend our momentary belief in separation from God. Yeah. So the ego is something that's not real. We talk about the ego. Everybody talks about the ego, the voice of the ego. Everything's so egotistical, self centered, blah, blah, blah. The ego does not exist, right? When we had a momentary belief that we were separate from God, the ego came in. We made the ego, right? As opposed to created. We didn't create anything. We can't create something that doesn't exist, right? So we made the ego to try and defend our choice, to defend our belief that we were separate from God, right? So you think about it this way. If someone is a liar, right? And they lie to someone, but then that person keeps asking them questions and they keep lying. Now they have to keep up with the lie, right?
Yeah.
Someone lies about something, they have to keep lying. Otherwise, oh, it comes out that they're a liar, right? If you don't keep up with it. And so, since we chose, even if for a moment, to believe the lie that we were separate from God, right? We made the ego to act as that character that says, oh, I'll defend you. I'll prove that we're separate from God with all of these other lies, right?
But then sometimes they forgot, they lie, and
Right?
they find out that
Right?
they lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people forget that they lied. And this is very similar.
Because if you think about the truth, la verità giusta, you're taking on that.
It's okay.
Um, the truth, you never can do mistake when you say the truth because it's the truth.
Right.
Even something that you have done 30 years ago,
Yep.
if you have remember, and you say, I was like this. And tomorrow you say the same. I was like this. But
Right.
you lie. Tomorrow maybe you forgot
Right.
how I was and you say something different
Right.
because it's a lie.
Yeah. So the ego is trying to keep up with the lie.
There you go.
So we believe one lie, that we are separate from God, right? And the ego is trying to keep making us believe that, right? Because again, we made the ego. It has no substance. It has power. The only power it has is what we give it. We say, here's my power. Here's my willpower. Here's my willingness to do what the ego dictates, right? We hand it over to them, right? But on its own, it does not exist. It has no power. It is a construct of our mind, right? Because just like you're saying, if someone lies,
Yeah.
and then they forget,
Yeah,
right?
they do.
And then they lie again, right? Because now they don't have the right story, right?
Yeah.
So the ego is feeding the lie, right? It's trying to justify fear. It's justifying attack. It's justifying this feeling of lack, this feeling of missing something. We don't have enough. We're not safe. We're not loved. All of these things because it's trying to keep itself safe. If we truly understand and realize and remember that we are not separate from God, the ego falls away completely and does not exist.
And you don't lie anymore.
Right? We don't believe the lie anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because it all comes back to what we're choosing to believe, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. So the ego is let me grab some water. Ego is temporary, you know?
Well, I did it. I mean,
It's perfect. Don't worry. It's very relaxing conversation. So let's get back to the definition. So the mind's belief that it is separate from others and on its own, independent from God. That is the clearest definition of ego. It is the mind's belief that it is separate from others and independent from God, separate from God. And for anyone following along, you can exchange the word God for source, universe, creator, the Tao. It is this constant, never changing spirit energy that flows, right? It is the one who started it all. However you want to phrase that for yourself. If you don't like the word God, totally fine. However, the key thing here is that ego is the mind's belief that it's separate from others, including God, and that its needs are met through attack. Right?
I don't understand.
Yep. So the ego will always justify in order. So the ego behaves two ways, right? Which we'll dive into more. The first way is that the ego will make you bigger than other people. Say, well, I'm better than them and they're less than me. And so therefore I deserve X, Y, and Z, or they deserve to be treated that way, etc., right? The other thing that happens, the other way that the ego will behave is that it will convince you that you are less than, right? So the ego is either trying to convince you that you are amazing, better than everyone, blah, 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 or that you are very low, right? Low self-worth, right? You're not worth very much. You don't deserve it. You deserve suffering, etc. Is that the voice you hear often? That's the one I hear often too. That you are, yeah,
You are the same.
yeah,
You feel like you are low.
yeah.
Like
Small, separate, small, weak, you know, not deserving of a lot, you know. It's better or it makes sense other people have more because they are more, you know, all of these things. So the ego will either put you above other people or put you below other people. But
so how is the right way to
we are all one. We're all equal. So we'll get into how we bring gentle correction to this voice of the ego, how we come back to the truth.
yeah.
Okay. But this is a great clue because if you notice a voice in the mind that is saying, I'm either better than other people or I am less than other people, we know the first step is just to acknowledge, oh, that is the voice of the ego, right?
There you go.
That is the voice of the ego. It's not real. It's not a real voice, right? I don't have to trust it. That's the biggest thing, right? Is like this voice comes on, you know, goes away for a little while, comes back on. It's a matter of whether you believe that thought. That's what makes the difference. Because with your belief, you give that thought power. You seem to make it real, right?
Right.
But on its own, it's just a thought, right? It is meaningless on its own, right? You make it meaningful if you believe it, right?
Well, it's because some people are more intelligent than others.
It seems that way.
It seems.
It seems that way. It's not really that way.
No.
It can seem that way only if it is most helpful for everyone. Most helpful for learning, right? So anything that seems to happen, whether it's someone seems more or less intelligent than another person, anything like that, right? We come back to the truth and we say we're all one, right? There's no separation between us. We might seem to have different expressions in this dream of life only because it is the most helpful for both of us, right? To come back to the truth, to come home together, right? And it can seem challenging, right? Because we look around and we say, well, I'm obviously better than them, or I'm more or less intelligent than that person, right? But then again, we're stuck in a game of comparison. It is ultimately an attack, right? So the ego uses attack to meet its needs. So as I was saying before, if the ego is overinflating us, right, it is attacking other people. It is saying they are less than me, they deserve to suffer, etc., right? However, if the ego is putting us lower than other people, it is also using attack, right? Because the ego is trying to make itself survive, right?
And make what?
It's trying to make itself survive. The ego is trying to only protect the ego, right? So it is willing, the ego is willing to convince us to attack ourselves or attack other people in order for us to keep believing the lie that we are separate. And it does this in all sorts of ways, right? Sometimes it looks, when we think of the word attack, we think of a physical attack, right? But think of all of the ways that you make someone small. You make someone not who they really are. You look at someone as if they are a vulnerable body destined to die, right? Or they are just a character in the dream, as if they are not spirit, one with God, with you, right? These are all the little ways that the ego attacks, that the ego tries to prove that separation is real, that fear is justified, that guilt is necessary, right? And none of these things are true. We are not separate. There is no guilt. Fear is never justified, right? But the ego would play this game over and over again, feeding us, essentially, feeding us thoughts to see if we will believe in that moment that we are separate from God, right? Because there's a choice in every moment to believe the thought of separation or to believe love, believe that we are one. Bambino. Baby. Yeah. This belief of separation has produced our experience of being a separate entity, a body. So believing that we are separate from God has made the body.
Cosa vuol dire?
Che l'idea
Di essere separati da Dio.
ha creato il corpo.
Has made the body. And again, remember, it is making, right? Not creating. Because it is a temporary thing. It does not really exist. It lacks substance.
Yeah, it's like a base that after a while it broke.
Right. And so it is not creation, because again, creation happens on the level of spirit, right?
So it's
So the belief that we are separate from God made the body.
when I have my near-death experience,
Yeah.
because I have one.
Yeah.
That was my real me.
Yes. Great. Yeah. So it's very clear that you're not the body. You are not this experience of the body. And it makes sense when we look at it this way, understanding, again, all-powerful creative mind. Now that we understand creation, we understand how God extended creation to us. And since we are an extension of creation, we extend creation, right? We have a natural inclination towards extending, right? And so if we have this natural inclination to extend, right? However, if we think about it like a lens, right? We have this like glass lens. We have a natural inclination to extend, we'll say light through the lens, right? To extend pure spirit creation through the lens. However, if you hide the lens, if you put over the lens the belief that we are separate from God, right? You are no longer creating pure spirit. Now you are making. You are just projections, right? It is just projecting onto nothing because you are making with no substance, right? And so this belief has produced or has made, not created, has made our experience of being a separate entity bounded by a body, right? And so if we say, here I am, pure spirit, here you extend, right? And then we add a belief in separation over that. What are you going to make? An experience of separation. You're going to make an experience of being separate, like a separate body, a body that could never touch another body, right? You think about this even on an anatomic level, right? The bodies, the atoms never actually touch. There's always space between everything, between the atoms, the tiniest, littlest particles in this experience can never touch each other, right?
Questa ne l'ho capita. Chi è che non si tocca?
Gli atomi.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Woohoo! Right in the sunbeam today. That's great. Yet it is a false belief. The ego is a false belief.
False.
False. Incorrect.
False. Yeah.
Also. For our real nature is at one with God and with all living things. The ego's voice is a constant, insistent voice in our minds. It is always trying to convince us to believe that we are separate from God. It is always trying to convince us. And we have a choice in every moment, every time it comes up and pokes us.
Why?
To say, I believe it or I don't believe it.
But why we are like that? Why?
Very temporary, right? Because we believed, even for a moment, that we were separate from God. And we made this, right? And in that belief, we made the ego. The ego is made out of the belief in separation.
So how you can eliminate the ego?
Yeah, great question.
How?
Mind training.
Mind training.
Reteaching the mind, again, because the ego, the belief in separation, is made and is chosen by the mind, right?
No, the heart, the mind.
Correct. Not the heart, the mind. Or you could more accurately say, not the spirit, right? The spirit is pure forever, never changes, right? However, the mind has temporarily chosen to believe the ego, right? And so it is in, and this comes from the fact, again, as one, we have overlearned fear, right? Overlearned fear.
Fear.
We learn fear and the separation from God over and over and over and over and over again, right? And so our mind is trained like a dog, right? You tell a dog, come here, and you give it food. Come here, you give it food, right? The dog is going to come when you call it, right? And so our mind is trained the same way, but with fear. And so it is an opportunity to retrain the mind with love, to retrain the mind that love is the truth, not fear, right? But it's just like learning anything, right? You have to replace what you learned before with the new correct information, right? And the most powerful thing you can do when you notice the voice of ego and you identify it, you say, oh, that voice is not true, right? Is to say it is not real. It is a meaningless thought, right? To give it no power. And sometimes this can be difficult, right? Because we are so used to believing our thoughts. We are so used to believing. A thought pops into our head, we believe it, right? And as A Course in Miracles teaches, we believe in what we make because we made it, right? So we believe it because we made it. It's just like art, right? If you make art, you believe in that art, right? Or if you, let me think.
Music.
Sure, music is a great example, right?
Yeah.
You
When music is good.
Yeah. We believe in what we make and create. It's just like what we shared earlier, understanding that if someone lies, they can convince themselves that that is true, right? So it is the same thing where if we believe something, we are willing it to happen, we make it, right? Okay.
You did your time.
We
I
believe
was wondering.
in what we make and create,
Yeah.
right? Yet it is the voice of something that does not exist. As such, the only power it has is what we give it. The only power the ego has is what we hand to it
There you go.
with our belief, with our willpower, right?
Yeah.
And you think about willpower, and I'm sure this will come up in our glossary of
So you are
definitions.
looking the index now?
This is the glossary. So it is kind of like that. But this is very helpful for this course in general and for future courses
For understanding.
for understanding a true definition
Yeah.
of some of these words because we talk about them all the time. But without the context, without the true definition, there are just more words we have, we'll say ego meanings for.
Yeah.
We have a meaning for this word, right? Based off of the idea of attack in order to survive, based on the idea of fear or guilt, right? But having a true definition for these words based on love, right? Based on truth, understanding things through a clear lens of seeing, not a lens that is clouded over by belief in separation, right? So clear of seeing, we're able to better understand these terms. Let's continue. Do you want a pillow?
No, lo want you to something. Come on, it's very neat.
Oh, thank Yeah, I was wondering. Okay.
That's okay.
The next word that we are going to define today is extension.
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 Extension. And we already kind of mentioned this when we understand creation, right? Understanding that creation is an extension of spirit, right? Happens on the level of spirit. And our creation, the attributes of us, the creator, extend to our creation, just as God's attributes extended to us in that creation.
How you do that?
Right? How do you extend? Let's read more. Extension, the natural dynamic of the mind, whereby ideas in the mind are expressed outwardly, right? Looked upon and then strengthened in the mind, right? We'll break this down a little bit more. Extension is the natural dynamic of the mind, right? So it is the natural way that the mind works is in extension, right? Ideas in the mind are expressed outwardly. Art is a great example. You have an idea in the mind and you express it outwardly, right? It is then looked upon, this idea in the mind that you express outwardly, you then perceive, and it is strengthened or reinforced in the mind, right? On earth, in heaven, we extend our being in the act of creation. Try to get there. In heaven, in the spirit existence, right? We extend our being in the act of creation, right? So in heaven, our spirit is extended into our creation. On earth, our function is to extend love and healing to other minds, using the body as an instrument of this extension. Right? So before we understood that the body was produced or made by the ego believing in separation. So this belief in separation made an experience of separation, right? And now we are understanding a new function to give the body, right? So understanding that the body could be used by the ego to prove to the mind that we are separate from God, right? The ego can use the body for its own thing, to prove that we are separate, to prove that we are lacking, to prove that we deserve to suffer, that we are not loved, that we will die, etc., right? However, we have a new function for the body being introduced when we understand that on earth, our function, our purpose, our job is to extend love and healing to other minds. Because again, the spirit does not need healing.
The
Right.
spirit what?
Needs no healing.
The
Right?
spirit I'm not feeling.
Needs no healing.
I don't need feeling.
Healing.
Healing.
Like
Oh, feeling.
healing.
What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the spirit needs no healing. It is only the mind that needs healing, right? Because the mind is confused, right? So it really just needs clear seeing, right? It's another way to look at healing. So we are extending love and healing, right? Or clear seeing to other minds, right? So we are able to do this when we do not have the layer of fear, the layer of ego preventing our true extension. So our natural extension on earth, our natural function is to extend love and healing to other minds, right?
Loving feeling, right?
Yep.
Say feeling.
Yep.
Non è che capisco bene.
Healing. Yes.
Yeah.
The natural.
Yeah, because I confused with feeling.
Yeah, but she said healing before.
Yeah,
You said healing.
Perfect. We our function is to extend love and healing to other minds, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But if we have this voice of ego saying the only way we survive is by attacking, right? We are not able to extend our true function of extending love and healing. We still have this natural function of extension, but since we have the filter of the ego that says, I need to meet my needs through attack, this natural extension extends attack or tries to, right? We can never really attack, right? It's impossible. There's nothing to attack.
Che è impossibile attaccare perché allora non puoi fare niente. Se attacchi, cosa attacchi? Il spirito che è immortale, lo scegli.
On earth, our function is to extend love and healing to other minds, using the body as an instrument of this extension. So now we are getting a new definition, a new purpose, a new function for the body, right? The body could be used by the ego to justify fear and to prove that separation is real, right? Or now we're seeing a new function for the body as a tool to extend love and healing to other minds. It is a tool of communication, right? So the body has a new purpose.
Yeah.
The body's purpose is no longer to prove that you are separate from God, to prove that you are vulnerable, weak, small, incompetent, etc.
Because God is love.
Because God is love and we are one with God.
And so we need love to be united with God.
Yes, and with others.
Yeah, and
With all.
others. Yeah.
Yeah. Projection is the distorted use of extension.
Thank you. Hey.
Oh, because see her.
we have
Thank you.
we have a very happy friend with us today. Would you like to come in?
She can.
Are you not done?
Anche io visto recente.
You're doing great. Oh, wow.
Yes, you want to dance with somebody?
It's okay.
It's
okay.
That's
Running the race.
Would you like to come here? It's always an option. It's always an option if you need like a little hug or kiss or something. Good girl.
Can I still need to perform that song?
Now that we had that wonderful serenade, we will continue. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Okay, projection. Projection is the distorted use of extension. Think of distorted very simply, just like how we were looking at it earlier, right? If we have a lens, right, and our natural thing to do, right, our natural doing is extension, extending love and healing to other minds through this clear lens, right? If you put, we'll say, a lens on top of that, you put a filter on top of that almost makes it like a funhouse mirror, or like we're looking through drunk goggles, right? Now, instead of extension or true extension, it is distorted, right? It is not clear anymore, right? We take our natural creative ability and our natural extension, right? And then we're putting it through this weird filter, right? It's all distorted. That's called projection, right? Projection. Think of it just like a projector, right? You're taking something, putting it through a filter, right? It's no longer what it was. Now it's projecting onto nothing, right? It seems like people are standing there, for example. If you're projecting a movie on a wall, right? It seems like there are characters. They seem to be doing things, right? This is not extension. This is let me be clear, this is a distorted extension, right? This is projection.
It's another dog.
Stroke up. Another dog.
They call it.
Yeah.
I have a dog.
Uh-huh.
A little one.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Projection is the distorted use of extension. So projection would also be how the ego seems to use extension, right? Where the ego feeds a thought to the mind believes it, and then extends this thought and this belief outside of itself in an act of projection. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. You're so good.
Stone the mango. Auto. It's right.
Smaller in the private office.
Do you need to take a break? Do you need a nap time? Great. Projection is the distorted use of extension, right? In which the mind disowns what is within it by hurling it outside of itself, right? So now we're looking at projection like a projectile, right? Like you're throwing something outside of yourself, right? It's a projectile, you're projecting it, right? So understanding in this analogy, in this context, right? We take a distorted use of extension. All right, we look at our belief of separation, but let's look at a symptom of that. So the belief of separation is the root cause, right, of, let's say, a belief of fear, right? A belief that we are not safe, right? And so this is a very uncomfortable thought, this belief that we are not safe, right? Or this belief that we are not loved or not lovable, right? And since this is so uncomfortable, we want to disown this thought, We want to disown this idea that we are not lovable. And so we seem to throw it as far away from ourselves as we can. We throw it outside of ourselves to land on someone else, right? And in doing so, we seemed that someone else is unlovable, right? Because we didn't want to hold on to the thought that we were unlovable, because it is so uncomfortable. And so we treat it as a projectile. We project it as far outside of ourselves as we can. One, everyone.
Glass.
That's it. Go. 1, 2, 3.
Holy shit.
Bedtime. Thank you. We have our perfect protection device. Store away. So projection is the distorted use of extension. So our natural extension is love and healing to other minds, right? Healing being clear seeing, right? Only the mind needs healing because the spirit can only see clearly, right? And so instead of extending, we project, right? Or like, get this shit away from me. Throw it.
That is correct.
Yeah. So projection is the distorted use. Think of distorted like you're wearing drunk goggles or looking in a funhouse mirror, right? It's the wrong use. Something's off, right? It seems like extension. Projection seems like extension, right? But it is not the use of extension. It's distorted. It's like taking extension and using it for a different purpose, right? Shift this tiny bit. There we go. Okay. In which the mind disowns what is within it by hurling it outside. Great. So now we've covered extension and a little bit of projection. Have a question?
No, I don't understand the last part.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying now?
So projection is the distorted, it is like the wrong use of extension, right?
Yeah.
In which the mind disowns, right?
The mind disowns
What is within it by throwing it away, by hurling it or projecting it outside, right? So the mind is saying, this is so uncomfortable. This thought of separation, this thought of fear, this thought of suffering or vulnerability is so uncomfortable in the mind. It is so unnatural. I want to get rid of it, right? And so I project it. I throw it outside of myself. I disown it, right? However, it is still made by the belief in the thought, right? And so in projecting it, we are asking, right? Again, we have a new, we're able to take this idea of the ego, this idea of projecting, of hurling something outside of oneself, right? And use it for learning, right? Just like how the ego could use the body to prove that suffering and vulnerability and separation is what's real and true, right? We can also look at projection as a gift, because oftentimes it is easier to see something, to see a thought that we are believing when we see it outside compared to if it is in our own mind, right? So understanding that what we see outside of ourselves is a projection from our mind, right? We are able to see, it is easier for us to see it outside of ourselves. And to then we can choose to bring love to it, bring love to the projection, right? Bring forgiveness to the error in perception, right? For example, that someone is unlovable, that someone is bad or guilty, right? These are all projections because we don't want to be bad and guilty. And so we take it and we throw it onto someone else, right? However, by noticing when we see it on someone else, it is easier for us to bring it to the truth. It can be easier for us to bring it to the truth, right? Compared to when it's just within us, when it's just in our own mind, right? Does that make more sense? How the mind disowns what it made, right? It disowns what it made, the belief it made, and tries to to get rid of it, right? By projecting it outside. Does that part make sense?
I don't understand very good because the language.
I understand. Let me try a different way.
Language.
So when you think about extension, that makes sense. Extending love, right? That part makes
I
sense.
understand that one.
Okay, so think about this where instead of extending love, you are extending fear,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Think about it that way. But since it is fear, since you are extending something that is an uncomfortable idea in the mind, it is distorted, right? It's like a funhouse mirror or like you're drunk, you know? It's not clear. It's not a clear extension, right? Does that make more sense now?
Yes.
Since it's uncomfortable, since the fear is uncomfortable, we want to get rid of it, right? An extension is our natural inclination. It's the thing we naturally do. But since we are extending fear, right?
You project.
You project.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Nice.
It's not easy. No, it isn't because the language too.
Yeah, I understand. Great. Just a couple more minutes. Great. The next definition we're going to talk about is fear.
The fear?
Fear. Fear is the emotion that stems from the belief that danger is near and that we are vulnerable to it. Very straightforward. Yeah, you got it.
Fear?
Fear is the emotion
Emotion.
that comes from believing that danger is near.
Okay.
And believing that we are vulnerable to that danger. Okay. Right? So if there is there are a number of we'll say evolutionary examples we can use for this, right? So it seems like if there is a tiger at the watering hole, there seems to be fear. There is a danger, there is a potential danger close by, and I am vulnerable to it, right? That tiger could hurt me, right? So that's a great example of this definition of fear. It is an emotion that stems from the belief that danger is near and that we are vulnerable to that danger, right? However, if I'm a tiger and there's another tiger at the watering hole, right? You could say that danger is near, but I am not vulnerable to it, right? And so therefore, no danger exists, right? And that analogy falls apart, so let's not get too picky about the analogy, right? But it's recognizing both of those aspects, right? Danger, the subsequent appearance or perception of danger is determined by our vulnerability. If we are not vulnerable, nothing is dangerous. Fear is an emotion that stems from the belief that danger is near and that we are vulnerable to it. right? So it is not stemming from the fact that danger is near. It is not an emotion that arises out of the fact that danger is near and that we are vulnerable to it. It is an emotion that stems from the belief that something is dangerous, aka the belief that we are vulnerable.
Because our physical body, right?
Because the ego would like to convince you that you are vulnerable. The ego would like to convince you that you are a body, that you are vulnerable, destined to die,
Yeah,
that this is a dangerous world, right?
But
And this
because
is,
we are spirit, we are not in danger.
there's no danger. Fear is never justified because
But it's difficult to change mind, though, because
takes practice.
we,
You learn the other way
yeah,
over and over and over.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, you learn fear over and over and over again, right? And so now we have an option to learn that we are invulnerable. We are not vulnerable, right?
Am I sure if I see a tiger near, I'm gonna feel some fear?
Sure.
It's normal.
But again, that may change. That may not always be true
Yeah.
because the fear is an emotion that stems from belief. And so if your belief truly changes, right, through choosing a new belief every moment, right, then your experience will also change.
Yeah.
If your belief is that you are invulnerable, if you exchange the belief of vulnerability for the belief of invulnerability, right, the emotion of fear will not come up because you see that there is nothing to be fearful of. You see clearly that fear is never justified. Continue. Fear, the ego's single emotion and fundamental mood. So everything that stems from the ego, right? Any emotion that stems from the ego can be traced back to fear. Even if it seems to be coming up as attack, as anger, as sadness, as disappointment, right? Any of these other uncomfortable ego emotions, ultimately, they all stem back to fear. They all stem back to a belief of vulnerability, right? The ego's single emotion and fundamental mood, which includes within it the emotions that led to it, anger and guilt. There is no actual basis of fear. So fear is not based on anything real, right? It is solely of our own making. Solely of our own
This is the
making.
more difficult part, the fear.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because the emotion of fear is a symptom, just like a sickness, right? You may seem to have a sickness, right? Or a virus or an infection or whatever, but the symptom is that your nose is running, right? So when we understand that fear is your nose running, but you're not just going to help your nose, you want to fight the infection. You want to fight the sickness, right? That's the end of the analogy. So when we look at it that way, we understand that fear is just a symptom, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to stop being afraid. We're not trying to end fear, right? We are trying to correct these things on the level of belief, right? Because it is the belief in vulnerability that makes fear. If you do not believe that you are if you believe that you are invulnerable, then fear will never come up. Right? So if you just try and say, oh, I need to be brave, I need to not be afraid, well, shucks, you're trying to fix a symptom. You're not trying to fix what causes the symptom, right? There's no actual basis for fear. It is entirely our own making. We make it by believing in vulnerability, right? By believing that there is a danger near and that we are vulnerable to it, right? This is the ego's single emotion and fundamental mood is fear, right? And what arises from fear is guilt or anger. Guilt or anger. And vice versa.
Cos'è questa frase?
Quello che viene fuori dalla paura è rabbia e sentirsi colpevoli.
Oh, so
Yeah, guilt, anger, and fear. The emotions that led to fear, anger, and guilt. Forgiveness. We're understanding a new definition. Wait,
yeah,
should we stop there?
I don't know.
Are we done?
Until what time?
Should we go till 8? 10 more minutes? Sure.
No, I want here just
Okay.
forgiveness.
Yeah. Forgiveness. This is a new definition of forgiveness. So take a moment, take a deep breath. We're releasing our old definition of forgiveness, right? The old definition of forgiveness is something along the lines of, you did something bad, but I forgive you anyway. And it is and you are lucky that I forgive you because you're bad.
Yeah.
Right? You should be grateful.
Yeah.
That's the old definition of forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Forgiveness, letting go of our false perception that another sinned against us and deserves our anger, and thereby releasing that person from the guilt we had laid upon them. Let's break that down. Let's get into it. Forgiveness is letting go of our false perception. So again, the only error that exists is the error in seeing through the lens of the ego, right? The only error that exists is the error of wearing drunk goggles to look at what's going on, right? If you're wearing drunk goggles, everything you perceive is going to be distorted. It's going to be ugly, right? It's going to be confusing and feel very dangerous, right? However, when we are seeing clearly, we say, this is a beautiful dream, right? So the only error that ever happens is an error in how we are seeing, right? Letting go, forgiveness is letting go of our false perceptions, letting go of the drunk goggles, right?
The what? The ground?
The drunk goggles, like,
Ground?
right. So like, imagine you are drunk and so they make these things called drunk goggles, right? Where you can put on a pair of goggles and it makes the world look like you're drunk, right?
Because I know.
Occhiali.
But it makes, so you look out of these goggles and you're dizzy and it's disorienting, right? It looks wrong, right? It feels very uncomfortable because it's confusing, you know? So this is an example I use to describe false perception, right? So false perception is like you're looking at the world through these goggles that are making everything look ugly and confusing, right? Making everybody look dangerous. Everybody's out to attack you, you know? But as soon as you take those goggles off, you say, oh, there's my brother. I love him, right? Forgiveness is letting go of our false perception. So it's the choice to take the drunk goggles off, right? To take off the gombles that would say that someone else is guilty. Someone else did something bad to us or against us. Letting go of our false perception that another sinned against us, right? And remember, and we'll get back into this later, probably our next session, but the true definition for sin is lack of love.
The true definition for what?
For sin,
Peccato. Okay.
simply lack of love, or a perception of lack of love, because lack of love can never really exist, right? So to apply that here, it's letting go of our false perception, right? Or letting go of our distorted vision that another person acted with lack of love against us, right? And if that person sinned against us, they deserve our anger, right? So forgiveness is letting go of that false perception that someone sinned against us and deserves our anger.
It is there.
Deserves our anger. So by letting go of the false perception that they sinned against us, we also release this idea that they deserve our anger. We see clearly that our anger is not justified, that they do not deserve our anger. And by letting go of this false perception, by letting go of this distorted way of seeing another, we release that person from the guilt we had laid upon them. Right?
It's
So-
so easy now. If somebody kill your children, you forgive them. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But not because he killed them and you forgive them anyway, right? Because you see clearly.
Because I remember that there was a guy, a father, that they killed his daughter, 22 years old, Padua. Julia was the name. And the father, he announced that he forgave. It was the fiancé, the boyfriend. He said that he forgave him.
Yeah.
But that is wrong.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it is easy to forgive somebody that killed your children.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It requires you to look beyond the body.
Yeah, I know.
It requires you to look beyond the character that they seem to be playing. It requires you to look beyond the illusion of stuff happening, right? To look beyond that, to see that they are innocent, that nothing actually happened, that no one was attacked, right? That this whole idea of bodies and death, right, and separation was fed to us by the ego, trying to convince us that we are separate from God.
Yeah, why we live on this time in this way? Why?
Because we chose to.
No.
Yeah.
It is even because they teach us.
Yes, and we choose what we
They
believe.
don't teach us this.
Well, I'm teaching it right now, Mama.
No. I know.
Now is the time for learning.
There you go.
Now is the perfect time.
Can I buy this book in Italian somewhere?
I think so.
Where? Amazon?
We'll find out.
They have all languages.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Otherwise, leave us for your friend Francesco if you send me one.
No, you can just order one online.
Let's continue with forgiveness because this is a very helpful topic. So, letting go of the false perception that another person sinned against us or behaved with a lack of love against us, right? Letting go of the false perception that someone deserves our anger, but we're going to forgive them anyway, right? We're letting go of the false perception that they sinned against us at all, right? And thereby we release them from the guiltiness that we would project upon them, right? Because the ego uses guilt to survive. The ego attacks with guilt, right? So the ego is saying either I'm guilty or you're guilty, and I don't want to be guilty, so you're guilty, right? This is how the ego works, right? And so by forgiving them, truly forgiving them, seeing that nothing needs to be forgiven, seeing that they did nothing wrong, right? We release them and therefore also release ourselves from that guilt, right?
Yeah.
Forgiveness then is the recognition that there is nothing to forgive. This is a quote from the text, chapter 15, section 8, verse 5, sentence 7. This contrasts with the conventional understanding of forgiveness, in which we retain that perception that another sinned against us. We retain the idea, we hold on to the idea that they deserve our anger, right? And then try to let go of the anger that is part of that perception. So again, forgiveness, as we previously learned it, oftentimes in the stream of the world, right, is that we are angry towards someone, they deserve our anger, but we will hold back our anger for them, right? Lucky them. You know? And so again, just like fear is a symptom of the belief in separation, of the belief in vulnerability, right? Fear is a symptom of the belief in guilt, right? And similarly, right, if we are trying to just hold back our anger towards someone, as the old definition of forgiveness, we are just trying to hold back our anger, but we are not truly forgiving them. We are not truly seeing that they are innocent. We are treating the symptom and not the cause, right? And so the situation will keep happening, right? If you are just trying to treat the nose problem, but you have an infection, for example, right? You are going to keep having an infection. You have to treat the cause of the problem, not just the symptom, right? So forgiveness comes from seeing another's true innocence, removing our perception that they did something bad to us. I understand.
Yes.
The Course teaches that through forgiving our brothers, we come to forgive ourselves. Again, by releasing our brothers from the guilt that we would assign them, right? By releasing them not from our anger alone, as the old definition of forgiveness would suggest, but by restoring them and seeing them truly as their innocence, as they were created, right? Not as a vulnerable body, not as the ego might want to see them or choose to see them, right? But to see them as perfect extensions of God's love, here to extend love and healing, the same function that we have. That is where we release guilt. And therefore we release the guilt of ourselves. We forgive ourselves by forgiving others. By seeing that others are innocent, we see that we are innocent. And we are free. Free from guilt. And by freeing ourselves from guilt, we are free from fear. Right? We see clearly that we have the choice in every moment to choose love or to choose fear. To believe the story of the ego. To believe the idea that we are separate from God. Or to believe that we are one, that we are love. And it takes repetition. We have to retrain the mind. We have to retrain the mind. No one can do it for us.
It's not easy because this is all new.
Sure, it seems that way, but really you're remembering. This is a reminder of what you already know is true, right? So have grace with yourself, patience and grace, because it is natural to, um, it is the most natural thing you could learn.
Yes.
Yeah. These principles, this universal curriculum of love, whether you seek it through A Course in Miracles or another source, right? Freedom from guilt, right? Freedom from this lie that we're separate from God is the most natural thing for you to remember. It's the most natural
Can
thing
you
for you to remember.
tell me again all the...
A review of the words we did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good job. The first was
Creation,
creation. The second was
ego,
ego. The third was
extension,
extension. The other was
projection,
um,
and then fear
fear,
and forgiveness.
that's okay. That's it.
That's it for tonight.
Yeah, we go now. I don't get it.
Thank you for coming.
A little bit.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week at Undefined Wellness at 6:30 p.m. approximately Eastern Time, and live streamed on the internet.
The next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Ancestor.
Yeah, vabbè.